Hello, Com 230. This is Brett Heathorn presenting Drug Trafficking. Our group was Brett, Charlotte, Chen, Dominique, and Yu Chen. So, the issue of drug trafficking. Drug trafficking is the widespread use of drugs such as heroin, cocaine, and marijuana, many more, such as also meth and crack, but it is viewed as a very important social problem. This is from Mark Moore, a teacher at Harvard University who created a government publication. Drug trafficking has many problems and that are connected to it and or caused by it, and we will go over a few of them, and we will also discuss possible solutions to it. So, some of the problems. Violent crime is a major one, and also nonviolent crime. Illegal sale of firearms, overcrowding in prisons, drug cartels, and poverty. Some violent crime. So, drug dealers often get into drug wars with other drug dealers, which cause many violent crimes such as shootings and fights, but also people that are addicted to drugs end up performing violent crimes to get money to pay for their addiction. And these people, if they could get help and stop their addiction, maybe they would stop their crime also. So drug trafficking and nonviolent crime. Besides violent crime, many people through drug trafficking do nonviolent crimes. And a lot of these people aren't even people who are prone to do crime, but they either fall into a bribe or get pressured by some person or people and end up doing things they usually wouldn't. This is usually people that launder the money, such as business owners or business people, bankers, and lawyers who protect the criminals and sometimes do these in illegal ways. The problem is that there's a lot of money in drug trafficking, and honest people, can fall into temptation. So it also leads to the illegal sale of firearms. Firearms are very necessary in the drug world because drug dealers need to protect their stuff, their drugs. And a lot of the times, firearm dealers are actually related to or connected to drug cartels and drug trafficking. Drug trafficking cannot satisfy people's desire to become rich. Doing illegal sales of firearms will bring even more benefits to them and make them more money. And then drug cartels can use their illegal firearms to threaten others and spread their drugs. There are more than 30,000 people killed by firearms each year in the U.S. Drug cartels. Drug cartels are a very big problem, especially in Mexico and around the border because they transport drugs from Mexico to the United States. A drug cartel is any criminal organization developed with the primary purpose of promoting and controlling drug trafficking operations. The Mexican drug cartels are the most known and related to the U.S. These illegal groups are responsible for 90% of cocaine that enters the U.S., as well as large amounts of marijuana and methamphetamines. This is a video of an old lady who accidentally or purposely got involved with a drug cartel or drug trafficking and gets caught trying to transport drugs across a border. Let's watch.
8 a.m. The Nogales, port of entry. At the pedestrian bridge, Officer John Avalos scans an average of 6 people a minute. 300 to 400 people an hour taking the legal route into the U.S. But he still must watch for smugglers.
Así se puede parar aquí un ladito, por favor.
At 8:30, he stops a woman and asks a few routine questions.
Hola, señora, ¿para dónde va? She didn't keep me off for anything. It was just basically I wanted to talk to her. I asked her where she was going. She was going to go shopping. She was a regular crosser. She had given me her crossing document. I was getting ready to release her.
Then the woman's behavior raises Avalos' suspicion.
I asked her if she had anything on her person. I was just straight up. First thing she did is she went down and she checked the leg area. It was a nervous behavior that she didn't realize. She had a dress on. I told her, pull tight behind your leg.
The woman fails to follow Avalos' directions, so he escorts her into CBP secondary.
Pat-down was conducted by 2 female officers. They encountered a package.
The female officers find a large package of white powder strapped to the woman's leg. Avalos takes it for testing.
Pop the first one, and as you can see, it's blue. You get the top, man, you shake it up. And this is cocaine. And this was the result right here. This is in pounds, it's 2.85 pounds. This is some good stuff that's on the street.
It's over $120,000 worth of top-quality cocaine. But what makes this bust particularly surprising is the detainee. She's a 76-year-old grandmother. Intel officers Terry Woodhouse and Juan Osario are called in to interview the woman.
Señora, ¿cómo se puso usted en esta situación? ¿Por qué puso la droga?
Iba caminando por la placita y yo me senté en una banca y porque venía cansada en el escritorio.
The woman tells the officer she was ready to cross the border into the U.S. to go shopping when she was approached by 2 people.
Era un señor, tanto ya me dijeron que si no quería trabajar y ¿dónde voy a trabajar? Le dije, porque le digo que ¿en qué voy a trabajar? Yo no sé, es una cosa muy fácil. Usted nomás nos pasa una cosa para el otro lado, dice el mandado, y le vamos a dar $50.
She says that the couple drove her to a shack where the female taped the package to her leg. Then they took her back to the border crossing.
¿Cuál fue su propósito de venir a
comprar un rollo de papel?
comprar el papel de corte?
Papel del baño. Solamente eso, nomás a eso.
¿Vive muy lejos usted de aquí, de la garita?
Sí, vivo hasta allá.
Hasta
Pueblo Nuevo.
Pueblo Nuevo vive. Y vino desde Pueblo Nuevo nada más a comprar el papel del baño.
Casi todos los días vengo y compro cosas. Pues son las chiquitas que a veces todos los días, porque como yo estoy solo en la casa y el padre vengo.
En toda honestidad, ¿es la primera vez que usted hace?
Sí, la primera vez.
To Woodhouse, it seems unlikely that a 76-year-old woman would travel so far, so often.
She lives way too far to be crossing every day. I think she's done it before.
The officers think she may actually be a drug runner.
She was very calm. And again, you know what? If that would have been the first approach, that lady would be so scared that she couldn't be able to talk to us as calmly as she did. She's done it so many times, they get used to it.
Recently, there's been a wave of elderly Mexicans being used by the drug cartels.
They probably think, oh, they're not going to check 94, 64-year-old grandmother. They're not going to suspect that she's carrying anything.
So that's just a quick video on how drug trafficking can affect almost anybody. Okay, another large problem is prisons are becoming overcrowded. In the U.S., we have the largest amount of people in prison to date. And One problem is that every person in prison costs the United States about $50,000 a year to keep them there. Or, sorry, $30,000 a year. My bad. And yeah. So another problem is poverty. Is people in poor families have a lower education, and then they have lower paying jobs or unemployment. Research has shown that less education meant more criminal offenses, ranging from poverty crime to casual theft to drug-related offenses. So people who grow up in poverty don't have as much opportunity as other people, so they turn to drug trafficking because there's a lot of money involved, and you don't have to have any form of education to get into it because it's an illegal practice. People, yeah. So what are some solutions? A few solutions our group discussed was finding a budget balance on war and / treatments, because there's a lot of money that's spent on war and when there could be a lot more on treatments. And then also harsher punishments is another solution. So setting a smaller budget on war. For every $100,000 state governments spend on drug control, they spend 2.38 on treatment, which is a very large ratio to drug control and almost nothing to treatment when treatment has been proven to be a better solution. And the amount of money we've spent on the war on drugs is honestly absurd, and we still haven't really gained anything or gotten any further and stopped it in any way with doing that tech strategy. So honestly, we should spend less money on war and more money on other solutions. So here's a video on the war on drugs and the war on drugs.
The cost of the war on drugs. Does it make sense to decriminalize drugs? Decriminalization of drugs would reduce state and federal deficits by eliminating expenditures on prohibition enforcement, including arrests, prosecutions, and incarcerations. At an approximate cost of $22,000 per prisoner, in 2009, the federal government spent $2,094,510,000 housing drug-related prisoners. Of the 14,209,365 total arrests in the United States in 2007, 13% were as a result of drug prohibition. That's like putting almost everyone in Hawaii and Alaska in prison. If drugs were decriminalized, the government would save $25.7 billion in state and local expenses and $15.6 billion in federal government expenses annually. How is the federal tax money spent on the war on drugs? In 2008, federal expenses reached $15.6 billion. $3.4 billion was used to fight marijuana. $7.1 billion was used to fight cocaine. $1.24 billion was used to fight heroin. $3.9 billion was used to fight other drugs. Every 19 seconds, someone in the U.S. is arrested for a drug violation. 82% of these arrests are for possession alone. The total number of federal inmates convicted in 2009 was 187,886. Of that, 95,205 were convicted for drug-related charges. About 51% of federal inmates are a direct result of a drug conviction. 47% of Americans over 12 admitted to using illegal drugs. We've turned the corner on drug addiction in the United States. Drug addiction in the United States is under control. After 40 years fighting the war on drugs, it's easier to buy marijuana than it is to buy a beer, according to a national survey of teenagers. Our legal system is completely overburdened. Nearly 4 out of 10 murders, 6 out of 10 rapes, and 9 out of 10 burglaries go unsolved, according to the Department of Justice. Over 35,000 people have been killed in just 4 years due to the violence related to Mexico's fight with their massive Mexican drug cartels. Violence, which is now making its way across the border into the U.S. Pat Buchanan of MSNBC once said, "How does one win a drug war when millions of Americans who use recreational drugs are financing the cartels bribing, murdering, and beheading to win the war and keep self-indulgent Americans supplied with drugs? There are two sure ways to end this war swiftly: Milton's way and Mao's way. Mao Zedong's communists killed users and suppliers alike as social parasites. Milton Friedman's way is to decriminalize drugs and call off the war. Americans are never going to adopt the Maoist solution, for the users of drugs are all too often classmates, colleagues, friends, even family. Indeed, our last three presidents did not deny using drugs. Find out more about the economics behind the war on drugs, the free market, and the principles of a free society at fee.org. BTV, Freedom in HD.
So basically that video just further shows how there's an overcrowding problem in prisons due to the war on drugs. This video said it was 22,000, I believe, instead of 30,000. There's a lot of different numbers for that for some reason, evidence of how much the government spends. But so basically, it's causing a lot of the issues is really just the war on drugs, because the war on drugs doesn't help anyone. It just puts people in prison, and that doesn't help them get over their addiction, because once they get out of prison, they turn back. The people who are in there for crimes usually turn back to crimes or back to drugs, and it really doesn't solve much of anything. People, like it said, most Americans have admitted to taking drugs or trying them, and it doesn't really make sense to try to just put all these people in prison, because you have to put an absurd amount of people in prison. You'll never get anywhere. So what are some treatments? There's many different treatments involved in rehab facilities and other ways to treat it. We're going to talk about how we can provide assistance to those in need and how we can go about distributing this assistance. So treatments usually involve forms of medication to help with withdrawal from drugs and treatments from issues caused by drugs. Behavioral treatments are also treatments for things with withdrawal and helping fix someone's behavior due to drugs. Treatment is one of the most effective ways, or is most effective when these are both used together. So, what keeps a treatment successful? One problem with treatments for addicts is that once they get better, they are left to themselves, and the people who helped them either just turn to go and help someone else and kind of just leave them behind. And once they get left behind, something bad happens in their life, and they have no support to stop them from turning back to drugs. So they end up just turning back to drugs as a way to relieve themselves or forget what's going on in their lives. But the problem is people come back, and it's kind of like any other form of illness that just comes back, can reoccur or come back. So what needs to be done for someone to fully recover is that once they stop taking drugs and they get over their addiction, they need someone or people to help them get through it, so they don't end up being tempted again. So this is like people who are in AA for alcohol addiction, or that they continue going to meetings even after they haven't drinking for a very large time, because they need the support to continue, because people that are alcoholics, they say once you're an alcoholic, you stay an alcoholic, and they end up turning back to the alcohol when something goes bad. So they need the continual support, just like drug users do. So why should we provide assistance? by providing assistance, we can help these people who have addictions become valuable members of society. People who have addictions usually a lot of times are criminals, or they become homeless, or and can't hold a job, so they're just hurting society in a whole by not being a valuable member of society. So what we can do is, like I said earlier, we can get them treatment and get them to continue this treatment so that they don't turn back to criminal activity and become just more functional human beings. And this was it in an article that I found online. So not only will treatment help stop drug trafficking by decreasing the demand for drugs, because if people are treated and not addicted to drugs, they won't turn to drug dealers to get drugs because they don't want it, which will in the end help stop the demand for drugs and stop drug trafficking. But it will also help decrease crime from the people who are the drug users and causing violent crimes all over the world. So how will we distribute treatments? We'll spend more money on treatment programs instead of the war on drugs. Create more organizations like NIH to help a larger quantity of people all around the U.S. and also the world. And we will invest money in treating drug abusers to stop the problem at the source instead of trying to stop the problem from the drug dealers itself. Harsher punishments. While the government spends a lot of money on war against drug trafficking, more people start doing illegal drugs selling. The government, I'm not sure what that person meant, but the government should give harsher punishment to. Oh, okay. So the government should give harsher punishment to the people selling drugs and instead of the people doing them, because those are the people who are causing the real problem. Giving harsher punishments to teach a bigger lesson to them and helping them realize bad effects to their family, friends, and themselves. The average amount of jail time awarded in a drug possession case in the United States is between 30 and 40 months. Harsher punishments can avoid destructive results against criminals. So this argument is kind of counterproductive against the arguments that we have too many people in jail already, but some people think this is a viable solution to the problem of drug cartels and drug trafficking. While governments spend a lot of money on the war against drug trafficking, more people start doing illegal drug selling. The government should give. Oh, this is the same slide. Okay, so this is some people sentenced to death because of drug trafficking.
Malaysia's federal court on Monday, June 24th, adjourned an appeal hearing for 3 Mexican nationals sentenced to death for drug trafficking to August 14. Brothers Jose, 33, Simon, 36, and Luis Gonzalez Villarreal, 46, were arrested with 29 kilograms of methamphetamine and drug-making equipment in the southern Malaysian state of Johor in 2008. They were detained along with 54-year-old Singaporean Limun Wang and a Malaysian Lee Boon Sian, 46. All 5 were sentenced to death in May last year after being found guilty of drug offenses.
We're very, very confident about this appeal. We have got more than sufficient grounds to highlight all the discrepancies in the cases, and I think you are familiar with some of them. The law should explains in particular, and we are all prepared for that. The case law is in our favor, and we just hope to have a day where everybody is present and ready to go.
The 3 brothers are the first Mexicans ever to be convicted for drug trafficking in Malaysia.
Alright, so people are sometimes sentenced to death in other countries for drug trafficking, and in these countries, people might be less inclined to deal drugs because they are more afraid of these harsher punishments, unlike our country where people just go to jail for a certain amount of years. That's it, and thank you for listening, and I hope y'all have a good summer. Thank you very much. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me.